Okay, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Consistency Podcast. I'm your host, Andre Robinson. I'm joined with FLW. How you doing, Frank?
Great. Great. This is June. June is Black Music Month. So,
Mm,
with We the Sauce, we're going to have to deal with Black music one of these times
for
for
sure,
sure.
for sure. So today, I know we were. I think you wanted to talk about plans for the summer, though.
Yeah. So, I'm pretty sure that this is good. This is going to be an out of the box approach to this. I shared with you when we were talking about today's show topic that I wanted to talk about a spending plan, a summer spending plan. And of course, usually when people think about spending right away, what comes to mind is dollars and cents.
Mm,
And I can already see just from watching a little news. I was watching a little news last night. And to be honest with you, I normally don't watch the news because so much of the news is negative. It's bracing to be a really hot summer. And I'm not talking about the Fahrenheit. I'm talking about what's going on with us as humans. Now, we've had a number of shows talking about finances, specifically money.
mm,
And in one of those previous episodes, I gave my favorite definition for money. My favorite definition for money is energy. Now, I've been giving a lot of thought. And by the way, I am a certified financial coach in terms of helping people to come up with what used to be called budget spending plans. I've been trained to do the kind of work that Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey does. Not the financial coach that helps you with stocks and bonds, dividends. That's a different kind of coach.
mm.
Okay. So I want to, and I've actually helped hundreds of people in this area. So I'm qualified to talk on this topic. And I'm saying that for those people who watch the video and think, you know, we're just randomly. Now, we've got other topics that we just talk about, but
Right.
I just want to clarify that I have some experience dealing with this topic. And from my experience, a lot of times people want to focus on numbers, and focusing on numbers is really important. There's a book that I read. In that book, it says that what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? You know what I'm concerned with, Dre?
Mm,
I'm concerned that today, a lot of people, because of all the different kinds of things that's going on, all the kind of stressors, whether that stressor is a person trying to keep up with an image or a stressor is people just trying to keep up, period. Gas prices, for me personally, every time I fill up, I'm spending anywhere from $5 to $10 more than I was before the Iranian crisis took place.
mm,
And so that situation has led to the price of all kinds of other things going up. You know, there's a rap song that because of what you do. Curtis Blow said, "Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head." there's a lot of people in that space, in that frame of mind. And so the number one thing that I want to talk about tonight is based upon that statement by Curtis Blow. Because, you know, yes, it is important for us to have a conversation about generational wealth. Generational wealth is important. But what I found, and this is a statistical, I'm going to use this as an example, it's a statistical fact. There are a lot of people who come across huge amounts of cash, people who hit the lotto. But the statistics say that people who hit the lotto, the majority of them are broke in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? Because having that additional cash without the right mindset to support it, without having the right heart to support it, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't stay. Because at the end of the day, money is energy.
Right.
Money is energy. And going back to what I was saying about the news, I'm 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 seeing I'm seeing a lot of recklessness. I'm seeing a lot of recklessness. And I think that we as humans, we have to begin to have more conversations with those people who are on the outside, who may be struggling, who may be close to us, people who we can get our hands on. Because one of the businesses that is very profitable is the prison business. And there are people who invest in prisons the way people invest in soda companies.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the concerns that I have is that there are a lot of folks who are falling into a trap or a pit that's been designed for them. You know, the World Cup is coming. And for some people, they're trying to figure out, with the price of fuel being what it is, and some people barely able to make ends meet, how is it that there's some people that can afford to spend $1,000 to sit in a soccer stadium to watch a match, not multiple matches, watch a match.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some people who got an attitude about that. Now, here's the point I want to make as it relates to that. There's a wonderful book by by an economist called Paul Zane Pilzer, and the title of that book is Unlimited Wealth. Unlimited Wealth. There are some people would have us to believe that there is scarcity and lack all over the world, but apparently there is wealth out there. Or else, how are these people able to fly into Atlanta from all over the planet? The economy is getting ready to go bonkers in this area. So the the, the question is, what what would a person need to do to shift their energy to be a part of the happenings, as opposed to the outside looking in? Some some people will take the position that, well, because of how tight the economy is, it's impossible to invest right now. Now I'm talking about
Mm-hmm.
stocks and stuff. Now I'm not about to tell you what to invest in. That's not my lane. But what I can tell you is that in actuality, this is one of the best times to invest because of the kind of environment that that we're in right now. In fact, the stock market is not doing bad at all.
Hmm.
And so the question that I want people to ask themselves is, am I positioned in this season at this time? Am I positioned to thrive, or am I just trying to stay alive? Because if you're just trying to stay alive, then that kind of takes that kind of takes scraping and struggling. But if you're positioning yourself to thrive, that's a whole different mindset, and that's a whole different positioning of one's heart. But anyway, uh, I've I've said enough to get you get you to chime in. Obviously, we're going in a different direction, but I know that you're a part of society. You're seeing things. You've got your own take on what's happening, and I know from my observation, maybe you tell me something different, but from my observation, you're not one of those people on the struggle bus. And I'm not talking finances. I'm just talking about as a human being, based upon the vibe that I get from you, you're not on that struggle bus. So maybe some people need to hear what is it that you're you're doing that will cause me to say that you're not on the struggle bus.
What am I doing that? Um, well, I definitely would say I am blessed. I show a lot of gratitude for the position that I'm in. This time last year, I didn't have a job this time last year. I think I just freshly got let go from my previous position. So yeah, it was a night and day compared to where I was last year and where I'm at today. So I think part of that is just about staying consistent on my job search at the time. A couple of other opportunities that popped up while I was looking for jobs, and I think that kind of helped put me in a position to where I had other things to focus on, and then when I did get a new position, then it was just kind of to stacking on top of other things. Um, Today, I think so. Going back to some of what you said was, some people are flying in. So some people are spending money to come to the city of Atlanta, and other people are struggling to even survive here. So how is that happening? I think a lot of that comes from how you've kind of structured your life. So uh, what a lot of people don't realize is many people who do make these trips or spend a lot of money to come to an event like this, it's more for business. So if you set up a business in a way that will benefit you by coming to a place where there's going to be a lot of people, there's going to be a lot of other business people, then that's how a lot of people actually justify making purchases like that. So as people get older or just more experienced in like networking, you realize that events like this comes with a lot of other events connected to it. So you might be in town for the game, and then there's a couple of other, some mixers in the industry that you've always wanted to be in. So it just kind of, I always say, big events give people an excuse to kind of go outside. Um, and with that, if you position yourself correctly, then every time you step outside, you could be marketing a business that you have, marketing a skill that you have. And so then that flips. So that could really change the purchase of a soccer ticket from a simple expense to a business write off or a tax write off. So that's how, and that's one of the biggest contrasts between, people who are kind of wealthy, or it's almost like, I wouldn't say the difference between people who are wealthy and not, but people who kind of move more business minded are able to kind of have more fun in the name of business, if you want to put it like that. Um, you can get a little bit more strategic about your fun. So you see people going on vacation all the time. A lot of times they're able to do that because it's a tax write off. Now, some people do get carried away with how they try to write some things off, and sometimes it doesn't all. But there's a lot of legitimate ways to travel and do, go out to nice dinners. If you if we were to eat on or order food while we're on stream, we could write that off on taxes. Like, it's certain things like that when you're playing the next level of wealth game, you're not just trying to consume resources, you're trying to make sure that you retain as many resources as you can. That's when that stuff becomes more important. So some people don't understand. Like with cars, it's a little different. I know it has to be over a certain weight. I'm not a tax expert either, so I don't take anything I'm saying as tax advice. But there's certain times when you purchase a vehicle that can be a tax write off. It has to be it's specifications that you need to adhere by, but I'm not exactly sure what they are off the top of my head. But there are ways that people, you can write off part of your home if you work at home. You could write part off your office off on your taxes as well. So there's small things like that, and that's kind of what, after a certain income, you're no longer trying to gain more money, because everything that you bring in gets taxed, and the more money that you get, you become getting taxed at a higher rate. So eventually people stop trying to show that they're getting a lot of money, and they try to spend that money in a way to where it will benefit them, because it's money you'd have to spend regardless. So if you already had to pay $100,000 in taxes, you'd rather buy something that you actually wanted with that 100,000 as opposed to just giving it directly to the government. So you give it as a business write-off. So I think that's one of the biggest things that, and that just comes down to the understanding of how money works, not necessarily, oh, this person's making 250,000, 300,000 a year, and then this person, like, you could still do that making 30,000, 60,000, but it's more impactful when you're in a higher tax bracket and you kind of have more discretionary funds to spend, because ultimately you'll be paying less on taxes, and it'll go towards hopefully something that will enhance your business personally.
You you said you said a mouthful. First of all, I was fortunate when I was in my 20s to learn when I was involved in marketing exactly what you said, because I would see a lot of these folks who were just knocking the ball out of the park. And you're right, they spend a lot of time vacationing. But those vacations were not simply a vacation. The vacation was 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 wrapped around business activities, whether it was them doing, like, some of the people that I was involved with, they would do presentations. So they're in San Francisco. Yeah, they flew to San Francisco. They might be going to tour the, take a walk on the Golden Gate Bridge and do some tourist stuff while they're there. But they flew out there to give a talk, for an example,
Mm-hmm.
or they're one of the keynote speakers at a seminar in the location where they will also go to the beach at. And so I think it's important for, and this is the point that you were making, is important for people to become less consumer minded. Because if you take a trip now, what a lot of my ex my ex clients would say if they took an ill advised trip is that, I work hard, I should I should be able to have a good time. We're not disputing that. You should be able to have a good time. However, how can you have a good time and make it make sense at the same time? In other words, if you take $10,000 and finance it on a credit card to go to Tahiti because it's your anniversary, yes, your partner is special. There's no question about it. But then that credit card is 24% interest. And if you make the minimum payment at 24% interest, it may take you 20 years to pay that credit card off. So the question becomes not whether or not that your partner is special, whether or not that expense will be worth it at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Or could the two of you, to Dre's point, could the two of you have decided to create a small business that would position you to take a trip, and now at a min at worst, you can write this trip off and receive some kind of
Tax
blowback
benefit. Yeah.
and tax benefits. But if you just, and you may have, okay, let's take the credit card, because some people are saying, okay, we don't need to involve the credit card. I'm going to take it out of my bank account. I have the money to spend. Okay, that's fine. If you have the money to spend, then that's great. But the average American has maybe about $2,000 in savings, period. So it's very few people statistically that can afford to pull $10,000 out of the bank and go to Tahiti. But people are going to those exotic places all the time using credit cards. And then when a real situation that might warrant using the credit card occurs, that's where the problem arises, because the credit card was used up to support lifestyle. And now when an emergency situation occurs, there is no credit card to be used. And that's how people get into real big trouble, because then you end up taking another step and going to the title loan people, and their interest is something different. It's out of this world different.
Yeah. I actually just was watching a video talking about pawn shops being a better indicator of what's going on in the economy. They were saying that a lot of big investors are investing in pawn shops because on paper, people are kind of making it week to week, but they are using those pawn loans in order to make things connect, or make things what's the word I'm looking for,
Keep it
make ends
make
meet, make ends meet. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah, keep it
so
afloat. Yeah.
yeah, so they were saying statistically the number of people, like before, the customer at a pawn shop used to be someone with no job. Now it's people with reliable incomes who are now going to the pawn shop and actually, they're purchasing their items back, but you're still losing the fees to the pawn shop. And they were just saying that that's an indication that with the inflation that's going on and people's wages not necessarily keeping track with that, or keeping up with the inflation rates, then now it's leaving a gap, and so they have to turn to alternative ways to get that money. And since the pawn shop doesn't have credit checks, it's a pretty fast way to get the money. Then a lot of people are doing that currently. And they were also saying a lot of the buy now pay later, they were just doing some research on that, saying that a lot of that's kind of a funnel into the pawn shop. So it was saying a lot of the new pawn shop customers have already kind of maxed out their buy now pay later accounts, which would be Klarna, Afterpay, Affirm, and now all, like, I think Apple Pay has some type of buy now pay later feature. So that just all goes to speak to the financial stability of a lot of people currently. So things are getting shaky, and that's kind of throwing off the stock market returns as well, because you know well, I would say it's giving. I'll take that back. I won't say, because I don't exactly know how that's affecting the stock market. But when it comes to people's personal credit, a lot of things, a lot of these companies don't report to, like pawn shops and buy now pay laters don't report to the credit bureau. So a lot of people, it may seem like they're only part of their debt is being shown up in the national debt and things of that nature. So the actual numbers are a little bit skewed because some of that debt is hidden for people. So people could have $20,000 with buy now pay later debt and that not be on the books anywhere, but it's still money that they owe. So that, like I've already said, that's not necessarily the best option. I think that's a little worse than credit cards. And the thing is, it's like I feel like they don't charge you interest or something somehow with the buy now pay later. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it's kind of
Well,
devious to
some of
me.
them do.
Okay.
Well, what happens is sometimes they get you in the process by offering you zero interest,
Hmm.
and then once you get into the game with zero interest, then later on down the line they hit you with some interest.
Okay.
Now, what I would say, and I haven't followed up on this since I heard this report, but there was a report that came out either the end of last year or early this year that legislators or the people who make decisions about what would be reported to the bureaus or not they were looking at including the buy now, pay later stuff into the mix, which would throw some people's situation into total disarray because before, like you said, it wasn't showing, and it's just that whole thing is just a nasty. It's just a nasty game, and we'll have to have another conversation or another session just dealing with the credit game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to the best of our ability, there's things that need to be got using credit. So, but but that doesn't dismiss the fact that it's a game with algorithms that you have no idea wrapping your hands around. But I wanna stay in the same rhythm that we were in. We've heard Master P say, and we might say it's one of his slogans now. He likes to say, "We're all we got."
Mm-hmm.
What is that statement? I'm sure you've heard him say it, or you've seen that verbiage
Yeah.
from him somewhere. When you hear him say that, what does that mean to you, Dre?
Um. Well, for Master P's big on black owned businesses, so he's saying we have to be looking out for each other as producer and consumer. So as a business owner, you gotta kind of look out for your customers, and the customers you have to help out the owner, the black owned businesses that you see around, and try and support them. um and with that, I kind of think we need to get somewhat out of that for the business side, because I think what happens with a lot of black businesses, we only target a black audience or a black customer base, and that minimizes what we can what our full potential could be in a business, especially when we're trying to make a living off of, because if you're trying to make a living and look out for people, those are two conflicting situations right there. So you can have the best intentions, want to provide low cost for people within your area, and that's very noble to do, but how long can you sustain that by you're charging your customer base 30% less than what the competition is making? And it's like, although it may be noble, and some people may appreciate it, because a lot of times you'll still get complaints about your prices are too high, or that you could help people out a little bit more. We have to think about the longevity of our businesses, and for our businesses to sustain long enough for it to have lasting impact. Because if you can only give people a discount for 2 years, then how much of you saving people, what, $50 a lot of times, like, and you've cut off your interest. So definitely we are all that we have, but we have to think a little bit broader as we move forward, because when we're selling just in our own neighborhoods, it leads to a lot of things, because it leads to some jealousy. People mad that they're like, oh well, I could do that, or they diminish your skill set because you're so accessible a lot of times. So you can be doing a service that most people would charge $5,000, and you're trying to make it affordable for people who and you're only charging 1,000. So that means every time that you could be given the same quality of work as these other companies are doing, but since you feel like, well, I got to do it for my people, I take a $4,000 loss every time I do it. And that's exactly how so many especially black businesses fail. And 5,000, $4,000 might be an extreme example, but it does happen like that a lot of times because also a lot of black people don't feel confident in charging. I've been victim of this, charging full price for certain services. And I think that's just as detrimental as not having people support you at all. Because now, if you were just selling things at 5,000, now you only have to sell one compared to before you would have to sell five to make the same amount of money. So that's kind of how I look at that situation now. But that doesn't mean that you can't. You look out for people by giving them the information. You don't necessarily have to give them discounts on everything, but you know, give them information on how they can save in other ways, or giving them a little bit of extra game on, okay, well, if you do it this way, you can save a couple of dollars down the line here. And I think that's much more beneficial than trying to cheapen your prices or lesser your prices in order to try and help people who, because at the end of the day, a lot of times they don't even become recurring customers. So you just sold something at a discount and now that's it. So it's different if you're bringing in a community or have like intro prices for people. But if you in your head are like, okay, I can't, I don't want to charge my people $3,000 for this service because I know they already, like, if you have that feeling, then you're never really going to be successful in business.
You know, I'm so glad that this is being recorded because what you just said, I've been trying to help people to understand for the past 10 years. That statement by Master P, who I'm always talking about, I think he's one of the most important figures in hip hop. The way I interpret that statement is the we is whoever is operating at the same vibration that I'm operating at. And I don't care what their paint job looks like. Because Malcolm said a long time ago that a black snake will bite you just as quick as a white snake. And trust me, as an entrepreneur, I've experienced that firsthand. And at the end of the day, money is energy, we are energy. And so when I'm interacting with a person, I am tapping into their energy, they're tapping into my energy. If we're vibing together, we're gonna do business together, period. Because I'm not gonna focus on this outer exterior and miss out on having an amazing relationship with someone because I didn't raise my vibration high enough to make that connection.
Hmm.
And some people, some people are completely struggling because they misinterpret what Master P is saying. Because let me be the first to tell you, Master P is doing business with everybody.
Yeah.
Now, his heart, his heart as his mind is to see my sisters and my brothers do well. But anybody that's operating on the same vibration, I'm going to work with you because at the end of the day, that's what it's going to take to move the ball forward. And I guess we're already dealing with the Black Music Month because Helen Baylor made the statement. She's a gospel music star. She said that everybody wants to be loved. And then Bob Marley said, "One love, let's get together and be all right." I think part of the reason why a lot of people are struggling is they bought into an ideology that's really is really not who we are as human beings. This rugged individualism that the Western culture tried to place upon us. At the end of the day, more than ever, we have to figure out ways to cooperate. In fact, one of the things that I've been wanting to do for the longest, and I've been talking about, is reestablish dynamic bartering. Now,
Hmm.
there's certain groups of people who who already do this. Now, we don't see it done among American blacks nearly enough. But when you go across the water to different African societies, bartering is second nature. It's part of what they do.
Hmm.
And I think that if we can figure out and see, here's the challenge. If 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 we made it all about black, then we would have to also get past certain layers of mistrust and distrust that's been built in and enculturated into us by those who decide that they want to control things and pit us against one another. For me, it's more important to have a good or service, identify those people who are on the same vibe, and do business with those people, and do business with those people. And we're gonna have to figure that out. We're gonna have to figure out how to do something differently quickly.
Hmm.
And I'm glad you brought up the fact that whether it be afterpay or whether it be pawn shops, brought up the credit card. What if the person who does carpentry, what if he was able to barter, make an exchange with a local dentist? We are going to have to figure this out quickly because, and I've been telling you that I want you to do a show just talking about AI. I know you've done shows talking about it, but we can't talk about that enough
Hmm.
because the technology is such that it is already, and not just AI, technology is at a point now where whole segments of the workforce are being displaced. Let's take Uber for an example. Uber has this vehicle called the Waymo.
Hmm.
They they proliferate. They're all over Midtown Atlanta, and I'm pretty sure if we go to some of these other major cities, New York and otherwise, we see these vehicles picking up passengers or dropping them off with no driver.
Yep.
Now, there are a lot of people who were supplementing their income or making their income doing Uber.
Hmm.
But the more successful this Waymo is, the less people they're going to need to drive these vehicles. And I understand that Lyft have their own version that they're trying to kick off.
Hmm.
Because one of my clients rode in one of the test vehicles that Lyft is working with.
Okay.
And that's just one example. That's
Hmm.
just one industry. And so what I'm saying is that we're gonna have to, and again, this is not just a black thing.
Hmm.
We as humans it's making me thinking of some. I forget the word that you use to the this. It starts with a D to describe uh, these societies that.
Dystopian.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. That was a wonderful word because we're moving there fast.
Yeah.
You know, you watch these films with the machines, it's us against the machines and all that kind of stuff. Well, maybe folks don't want to go off the deep end with that. All I'm saying is that
Hang on one second, Frank. You oh wait, no, you back. Okay, you froze on the stream for a second, but you good. I'm sorry.
yeah, all I'm saying is that if technology is picking up at a pace where it's displacing whole industries, then we as humans are going to have to do something different because there are whole segments of people that are positioned to be left behind.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens to these people who get left behind?
Yeah. Honestly,
This is serious.
yeah. Nah, you but that kind of goes back to what you were talking about, the barter system, because that's where we're really gonna we're all that we have left. Because actually, I just did a situation bartering. I made a like an electronic flyer for my mechanic, and then they gave me some money off of my brakes, doing my brakes for my car. So yeah, we have to think about stuff like that, because then it comes back to retaining resources, not so much just making sure that you're getting money from somebody. So if they can provide a service for you, and you know you can provide a service for them, that's a lot of times at the beginning it may not feel like you're like the money's already spent, but you're getting something of value, and it has like breaks is something that you need, and it can be very detrimental if you don't get them. So for me, that's not an issue. um, but there's other situations where you know the other person's services may not be something that you can benefit off of initially, but you know there's other ways that you can do business transactions that doesn't involve money, you know. So we have to get creative, and you know that's when we can really start working for each other, because maybe they know of another service, or maybe they have a friend with the service that you need, and you know they can you know get you to pay, or you know they pay for that service, or you know get their friends discount for something like that. It's all sorts of different ways that can work, but yeah, we're gonna have to get to some type of system to where we don't have to spend all of our resources on certain things, and just find different ways to save.
And can you? I'm curious. Can you share? Because again, what I'm hoping to do is to get us to a point. When I say us, people, humans, get us to a point where we can comfortably trust that this is a process that can actually work. And what I want to ask you to do is share how did it come about for you to make that exchange with the mechanic? And while you're preparing to share that, businesses make such exchanges all the time. For an example, said airline. I'm not going to name the airline just because I don't want to do any more free advertisement. I've already did a free plug for the ride sharing companies.
Mm.
So said airline has airplanes that need tires. Make that airline makes a deal with said tire manufacturer. The tire manufacturer provides the tires for the airplanes, the airplane, the airline, in exchange for the tires, provides a carrier to take the tires all over the world.
Mm.
No cash is exchanged, just goods, services.
Mm-hmm.
And businesses, they barter all the time. And that's part of how they stay in the block,
Right.
because they're always looking at creative ways to barter.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, going back to what I was saying in the beginning, people to vibrate differently, they have to not look from a perspective of always trying to take. Dre, have you been around those people who every time you get around them, they're always trying to figure out how to get something from you,
Yeah.
and it seems like it never behooves them to ever try to give.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you talk to them, they always need something, but they're never ever trying to give anything. And what I'm saying is, the people who are going to be left behind are those people, because in an exchange system, you have to have something to release. And if you don't have dollars to release, then what? Because some people don't have dollars to release, because the dollars that they have to use it to pay their rent. And so, beyond rent and putting gas in their tank so they can get to their job, there are other things that they need in the meantime. So it's a heart shift that some people need to make. There's some people. I'm gonna give you an example. I don't
Hey
know if I
Frank,
shared this.
give that example. I gotta shut something off real quick, so just give that example.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
So I'm gonna give an example. So I don't know if I had shared with you, Dre, before the pandemic. I was having what we call coffee houses, where we were given a platform for artists, most of them gospel focused artists, to share their art. And I knew this particular poet, and I knew that this poet had already been in the game for a minute. And I asked this person, "Hey, would you come through and share? We're getting this off the ground. There Nobody's getting at the paper yet. However, if we can grow this thing, then everybody will eat. Everybody will eat." That person didn't even give me the time of the day. But meanwhile, it was somebody who I personally had already been very generous to. And the first time that I asked this person to be generous, that person showed me, showed me what.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for some people, and I'm not talking about being ran through or taken advantage of, because on the opposite end, I hear those people saying, "Oh, but I'm always extending myself." But we're talking about an exchange. We're not talking about where you give to this raggedy dude, you give him your car, he tear your car up, and then you buy him a new car. We're not talking about that. We're talking about an actual exchange. We're talking about an exchange where this person over here has something that you want to need. You have something that you can give. Boom. I remember, to your point, Dre, years ago, after I, uh, I went to a chiropractor. The chiropractor said, "You need some consistent work." And I found this massage therapist that was willing to swap massage therapy for coaching. It was great. It was a great setup because if she had to pay out of pocket what she would had to pay a coach, it was going to be expensive. She didn't have to cash to pay a coach. She needed a coach.
Right.
And if I had to pay a massage therapist, the amount of money I needed to pay on to get a massage therapist consistently, I wasn't willing to pay.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great deal.
Yeah.
And the deal continued until she moved into a different direction. It no longer was offering massage therapy on a full-time basis.
Mm-hmm.
So there are opportunities like that galore, but you have to position yourself to be somebody that someone could barter with. And then if you what was important about that situation, Dre, was that it wasn't a one-off, because there's some situations that are one-offs, but you have to, in order for you to successfully barter in some situations, you have to be trustworthy.
Right.
Because I had to trust this person that after they got what they were getting, they were going to continue to come.
Mm-hmm.
Now, part of the reason why some people are struggling is because they don't have any integrity, Dre.
Yeah. That's true.
So part of the reason why I'm gonna just tell people straight up, part of the reason why you're not on the struggle bus is because you're a person of integrity. Because here's the thing, a year ago, as you shared, when weren't you didn't have an outside gig, because I know you always had something going, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you didn't have an outside gig, never once did you come to me and say, hey, FLW, Frank, we're gonna have to cancel the podcast. We're gonna have to stop doing the podcast because I gotta focus on getting a gig. Now, it was important for you to get a new gig, and you did, but you didn't change the agreement you had with me. You didn't back out of your agreement that you had with me because you had something on the other side that you were working on. But I can't tell you how many times I see people renege on something that was working in order to satisfy or assuage some other situation. And oftentimes that other situation is them chasing after the wind, them trying to chase a fantasy. To be honest, some people really need to go back and listen to those original consistency podcasts that we did,
Yeah.
because for some people, the challenges that they're having around whatever they're having challenges around, it has everything to do with their lack of consistency. One of my teachers says that the primary reason why people fail is broken focus.
Mm.
They're all over the place. They're all over the place. But if they can take something that is working and work it, then eventually, boom. Let's take the playoffs, and then I know we coming up against time, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna belabor this. I think if people just we already then gave a lot of nuggets. If people could just take one of them and work it.
Yeah.
Um, Distracting myself.
Well, before you get to the playoffs, I'll say about the mechanic situation.
Oh,
Uh,
that's right. Thank you. I forgot when you stepped away. I forgot it.
yeah,
Yeah, tell
yeah.
them.
Okay, so that's actually Eminem Muffler. Shout out to them. They're a mechanic shop off of Sylvan Road down in Atlanta. Love them. They're the best. Really, I've been going to them for probably 10 years now.
What's the name of the shop?
M&M Mufflers.
M&M
M&M.
Mufflers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ran by a lady named Mercy. It's a whole family business. Her father passed it down to her. And yeah, they're in there. Great, always great service, quick, reasonable prices, everything. So shout out to them for real. They're actually the first. That's the first website I ever built for somebody was M&M Mufflers. So that was 10 years ago, or maybe it was like 2017. But I remember I was looking for just any company to get my web development career started, and
they gave you a shot. They gave you a chance.
Gave me a shot. I was taking my Nissan Altima up there. When it was, anyone who knows me remembers that Nissan Altima. So I took it there. They always took care of me. And yeah, so they gave me my first shot. I still have down payment on the website was $50. I still have that $50 bill to this day. And I want to say I might have gotten $300 for the website in total. And, they used it for a while. But at that time I was delivering pizzas. So, making that $300 and the website wasn't anything crazy. I just had them send me a couple of pictures, but I was like, man, it would have taken me 3 Saturdays to make $300 on working at Pizza Hut. So that's when I was like, okay, I could do this software stuff. But regardless, I mean, after that, I continued going to them. Just anytime I had a car issue, like back then when I had an older car, because that Nissan Altima was like a 99, so I was always at the shop really. But then when I got a newer car, then I didn't have to go as much. But anytime like I needed an oil change or something simple, I would go back there. So yeah, and then so a couple of weeks back, then one of my friends, they were getting there because I always put people on, told them to go to the to the shop. So somebody had gone, and then they had mentioned me because I introduced them, and then it was like, oh yeah, we need a flyer. So then they reached out to me, and they had a real simple request. I'm like, okay, this was something I could do in like a couple minutes for real. So I did that. Got it back. They needed like a little logo as well. So, I just did a couple of different services for them, provided it, and then, that's kind of how we got back in contact. And really, they want me to do, help them kind of with some more social media stuff as well. And that's really been, pushed me to get my web development packages back. So just today, actually, I got my Robinson WD URL back up with my different packages. So that, just a domino effect. Once you have someone who's interested in your services again, it reminds you like, okay, well, how would I? Because when they were initially asking me, that wasn't something that I normally offer, but it's something I know I could help them with. So I was like, all right, well, I got to get back to you with just pricing and everything. So now it's made me think of a whole new kind of business plan, how I can help other people with that. And actually, this week I also had the release of I don't know. Actually, I don't know if I ever mentioned it on here, but I've been working with my friend DJ Mark B, who's 21 Savage's DJ, and he's been coming out with a FYM Academy, which is teaching people how to DJ and produce. So we just released the website for that, I think Monday. So that was and that felt like an album release because we've been working on that for over a year as well. So yeah, and so
congratulations.
Thank you, appreciate it. And so all of that just coming together. So now I actually have a premier website that I can kind of promote. Like, okay, I built this from scratch, which is what I've always wanted to do with websites. Like when I first started there, M&M Mufflers, I did build that website from like scratch, which is like HTML, CSS. But then after that, I was trying to get into like WordPress websites where you just kind of stand them up, but I didn't have as much control over them, so they were all looking very generic and basic, and then it just became hard for me to market doing that for somebody when they kind of have the tools to do it themselves. And a lot of times with websites, it's more than just I need a website. Like, you need images, you need to know what you're trying to sell on there. So, and that's where I went wrong early on in my freelance career, is just not understanding that aspect of, yeah, businesses want websites, but they don't know what's supposed to be on a website. And that's where you have to kind of be more of the expert and kind of shift people, or steer people in the right direction for that. So now, I have more potential clients who, want websites. I have a actual showcase that I can show people, the full extent of what my skills are. So yeah, it all works out. But that's a 10-year relationship I was able to utilize. And I didn't get any money directly, but I saved a lot of money, because when I was at the dealership, they were going to charge me $500 to change the back brakes. So I got
Oh
all my
yeah.
brakes changed, and for less than a fraction of that. Like, I was extremely pleased. They were pleased with their product, and they want to work some more, which pushed me to iron out some of my business models. And so yeah, now we're on a whole new roll. And so, like, a whole year later from where I was last year, that's why. Because you, like you said, if you keep integrity and you stay down, eventually people are going to see, or they'll be like, oh, you know what, now I do have some extra money to do that service. So that's it's full. Like, since we're talking about energy is never created nor destroyed. My whole philosophy is no work put in is ever lost. So that's why I have no problem being consistent, because I know someday and it's not on your time, but whatever you put in is going to come back out to you. So that's how you can don't ever think that you're just spinning your wheels for nothing. If you putting out consistent great work, that's eventually going to come back to you. It may not come back to you in a monetary stance, but it may come back to you tenfold, pressed down, shaken together, all of that. So keep on doing great work. But you was well, yeah, now we could get to the to the playoffs real quick
No, I'm glad that you reminded me. I'm so glad you shared that, because wow, there's so this that story is so rich, because sometimes a person just needs that first opportunity, and at that point you were still a newbie as it pertained to the work, and somebody had to give you your first shot, and
exactly.
they did.
I didn't
And
even know
then
I could do
and
it.
some of us are in a position to give somebody else their first shot.
Mm-hmm.
Now I will say that there's an expression or an acronym called FOR, passing over opportunities repeatedly. Some people find themselves on the outside looking in because they refuse to go through open doors. So they remain stuck, not because they have to, but because they are choosing not to go through the door that's been opened for them. For an example, you might have a person that had an opportunity to come on our show, for an example, and they're still holding out for Oprah or Steve Harvey. And I'm not saying that may happen for them, but most people who end up on those shows, or on some other show before they got on those shows, and all due respect to Steve and Oprah, they started somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I hope that there are people who will shoot their shot, because what if you would have curled up in the corner and said, you know what, I don't think I'm going to be able to ever get this off the ground. And because we also know those people who they've created a product, but they won't shoot their shot. So how can they ever get on if they don't shoot their shot?
It's too much time to not shoot your shot. That's how I operate. I'm like, there's too much time just in a day to not at least try. Like, there's nothing nobody can think of me that really necessarily concerned. Like, you could think I fail all the time. I fail a lot in public, and it don't really matter. It doesn't matter to me. I love. I don't say I love to fail, but I love surviving failure. I would say, because when you survive failure, you're like, it wasn't even that bad. So like, it's always better to have loved and lost than never loved at all. Like, it's the same thing in business. Like, it's better to lose out on a deal, because even if say you're doing a very big deal, and say at the end of it you don't get anything except for the experience. That experience is more valuable than you're now more experienced than you were at the beginning of that process, and that's a whole different level of value that you can now bring on to your next project or whatever it is, and having those lessons to know what to protect yourself against early on. Because say you didn't do that, now the next opportunity you might have gone into, and it would have been the same thing. So it's like every time you're going to have to start at zero. And I'm not saying you're going to get burned on every first opportunity or every opportunity, but it's better to get that out of the way early than never get, or, waiting until, losing 10 years, not doing it at all, and then still getting burnt on your first opportunity. So better to just get the failures out the way quick. Or what did they say? You want to fail at that, try at that. I forgot. But it's just get all your failures out the way.
Better try.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So.
What I was going to say about the playoffs that I think applies. Sometimes people get tricked when they look at the success of someone else. And take, for example, the Spurs. The San Antonio Spurs have what one announcer used to call diaper dandies. They've got a bunch of 20-year-olds, and you would think like, wow, these guys are so lucky. They're in their 20s and they're in the NBA Finals. Well, they're very early in their NBA career, but trust me when I tell you that each one of those guys on the Spurs have logged a lot of hours with the basketball in their hand.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them have been dealing with a basketball ever since they've been walking. I would dare to say that's probably true for Harper on the
Dylan Harper on the Spurs. Yeah.
His dad is a 5-time NBA champion, and his mom played basketball as well. So from the outside, you might think that this person just got lucky. No, like Dre said, you start off being fortunate enough to be blessed, and then you put in the work. And over time, you find yourself in a position to play for a championship. But those guys, they've logged a lot of basketball hours. If we had a chance to talk to each one of them, you'd be astounded how much hours they put into their craft.
Mm-hmm.
Hours and hours and hours into their craft.
Yeah. And we're at that stage. Everyone in the NBA now has probably been playing since they were 3 or 4 years old at this point now. Like,
yeah,
we've really seen like the advancement of children in, practicing at professional levels at such young ages. So that's why the skill elevation has gone up. Like, seeing Wemby at his height and able to have the skill set that he does, most times people wouldn't have found him till I don't even know his full story, but a lot of times they wouldn't have found him till he had his growth spurt in high school and then started trying to train him. But you know, Wemby looked like he'd been playing since he was like 6, 7 years old, and you know now it's like now he's doing amazing things and has amazing control. So that's why I'm like, yeah, the advancement of just skills and talent that we've seen in professional sports is just going to continue to skyrocket.
But Dre, to put a bow on this and bring things full circle, my challenge to us is to focus on our individual energy. We are energy. Focus on how we dispense our energy. We all seek to be loved. And it's one thing to want to receive love. I think about the Donny Hathaway, Roberta Flack song, Where is the Love? So if we all start with the premise of giving love and trusting our source, for me it's Yahweh, to make sure we get the love, then everything that we ever would wish and hope for has the possibility of coming to us. But I think that for those people who are vampirish and always trying to figure out how they can get, how they can take, and how they can scheme, reevaluate, just reevaluate. That's a broken model. It seems like it's the way, but I promise you, it's not the way. It's not gonna work. It's not working.
Instant gratification not gonna last you. But yeah, man, I actually love that poor acronym. That might actually be the the title of today's thing. Passing over opportunities. What was it? Passing over opportunities repeatedly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fire. So we might have to use that. But okay. Anything else on your heart and soul you want to get off before we get up out of here?
Rest in peace to Peabo Bryson, one of the greatest to do it. This is Black Music Month, and yeah, I'm excited about. We're gonna have to talk about that. I think we're gonna have just as much fun with that show as we had with one of the one of our recent shows. I think it was the last show. We were just, it was more like a conversation.
Okay.
Just letting our hair down a little bit. That's going to be fun.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be so much fun because of the generational differences. So we'll talk about that. People should look forward to that.
Okay.
Because music for a lot of people, they can connect different facets of their life to music, and some of the best music has been put out by Black maestros. So we should, give them some big up, as they say.
Oh yeah.
But that's all I got. Thank you again for your consistency. And it's a blessing to hear all the wonderful things that are coming to you. So
I appreciate it. Thank you, man, because you've been right here with me. It wouldn't be possible. So I appreciate you immensely. And we appreciate all of our viewers and subscribers. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you aren't. Catch us not next week, the following week, as we'll be bringing some music talk back to the pod. And we hope to see you there. Thank you so much, and catch you later.